All right.
Larry and Mr. Montgomery, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We realize you probably get these requests a lot and appreciate you taking time out of your afternoon to spend with us.
Yeah, glad to do it. Happy to help in any way.
Dominic and Irish students at Benedictine College in Addison, which is about 20 minutes northwest of Kansas City. We both are big baseball fans and appreciate all you've done for the sport and pastime we all love. We put together some questions be specific to the Royals and MLB. But before we get into those questions, we'd like to know how you got your start with the Reds, and especially the Royals, and your stories again to MLB, and doing drafting and going through the minors, and what it was like.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town. I grew up a Reds fan. I grew up in Ohio and always wanted to play baseball. Didn't realize that at some point I was going to be able to play professionally, but I guess deep down in, that was always a goal or maybe a dream of mine was to be able to play professional baseball. And if I had a choice, I would have played for the Cincinnati Reds. And my biggest goal as an amateur player essentially was to find an opportunity to play college baseball and get a scholarship, which I was able to accomplish that with the Marshall University. And I had a really good first year. My second year was so-so. My third year, the year I was drafted, actually was my worst year. I didn't have a good start to the season. I finished strong, and the last two games I pitched were against two really good teams, University of Kentucky and Ohio University. And both of those teams had prospects as far as the draft, the upcoming June draft, on their team, and I did well. And the scouts saw me pitch those days and basically invited me to a pre-draft workout at Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati, which I attended. I think I did well there. And, a few weeks later, I'm a professional baseball player. So it was really good timing for me as far as pitching well in those last two games in college and then getting drafted. Didn't realize the long road ahead in the minor leagues, but basically spent 5 years of, trying to climb the ladder, each level from rookie ball to A ball to double A ball to triple A ball and then the major leagues. But was able to accomplish that dream in 1987 with the Reds. Before the 88 season, I was traded to the Royals. Spent my last 12 seasons with the Royals. And when I was traded, a lot of people felt like probably that was disappointing to me, getting traded from the Reds to the Royals. But it was really refreshing to me because I felt like I was going to have an opportunity to play on a major league team instead of being sent back to the minors with the Reds. So it was a great opportunity for me. I fortunately was able to, I guess I'll say, capitalize or cash in on that opportunity, and kind of the rest was history. So that was, in a nutshell, my career path as far as being a player. After my playing days, I started coaching amateur baseball in Kansas City. My two boys, I started with one when he was 10, the other one he was 11. I took them both through up to their high school years. So I coached 9 years of amateur baseball in Kansas City. Had a lot of fun doing it. Met a lot of great people. Worked with a lot of really good young men. A few of those boys were able to accomplish college scholarships of their own. So it was really rewarding to be able to do that. And then, real out of nowhere, I was asked if I would have any interest in being part of the World Television broadcast team. And since I had finished coaching my boys, I really didn't have anything going on in the summertime, and I opted to pursue that opportunity. And here we are 14 years later, and I still do it, and I love it. And I don't know how much longer I'll do it, but there's no end in sight.
That was one thing that I've noticed is just through looking at all the sports. If there's a minor league team, I've noticed all these players being able to play really well for their first team that drafted them, and then when they go off to another team, then everyone's like, oh, are they gonna do well? And they actually do better. That's just something I've noticed throughout all the time I've looked at all the sports.
I think one reason for that probably is players recognize their opportunity, and as an athlete, professional athlete, it's performance based, and you obviously would not likely be traded from one organization to another if you were performing at the level that your previous team expect you to perform at. They looked at opportunity maybe for a change of scenery, and maybe it's something that works out for more than one player, you plus a player that you're being traded for, or the other way. They look for ways to maybe say, hey, we see something there, we can get a little bit more out of him. For me, example, I was very successful in the minor leagues as a relief pitcher. My last season in the minor leagues, I became a starting pitcher. I was actually promoted to the major leagues as a starting pitcher. Didn't have many opportunities to start in the major leagues, but when I was traded to the Royals, they said, we really like you better as a relief pitcher. We're going to put you in the bullpen and, really kind of groom you as being a closer type. And I think that was one reason that my performance elevated to the level I needed it to.
All right, so who are some of the players that were huge mentors to you, or you were able to learn from and watch that helped you grow as a major league pitcher and baseball player during your playing career?
Oh, there were a lot of players, mostly pitchers. Probably the one that comes to mind most would be Mark Ubaza. He was already an established major league pitcher with the Royals when I came over. Another one was Steve Farr. Brett Saber-Egg was very instrumental as well. And they didn't really help me as far as mechanics or pitches or anything of that nature. They just were companions. They were teammates that they stressed positives to me, and they made me feel comfortable and believed in myself, and let me know that my stuff was certainly good enough that I could play at that level for a long time if I allowed myself to go out and work hard, continue to do all the little things you have to do to stay at the top of your game. But they were just they were there for me. Those guys had established themselves. They had 3 or 4 years in the major leagues each, and I think they saw me as a player, kind of like they were when they came into the American League with the Royals. And George Brett was instrumental in their development and their career. Short same with me. He was a guy as a teammate, made you feel very welcome and comfort as far as being on that team. It didn't matter if you had one day in the major leagues or he had over 10 years in the major leagues. George treated everybody with same amount of respect, and he was just a very good teammate, very good leader, so to speak. So a lot of us modeled our our locker room style and presence after George Brett.
Yeah, George and Brett Saberhagen and all those guys well. So I've watched a lot of video of their highlights. Like George Brett was just a great hitter, like the way, and also the leader he was for the city and the ambassador that he is.
Well, he was just the model pro. I mean, I remember George got his 3,000th hit. It was early in my career, and I bought him a gift. It was it's a desk clock, and on the back of it, I had engraved to George, congratulations on 300, the ultimate professional. And I think that really kind of summed it up. That's how we looked at George. He was the ultimate professional.
Was there this kind of a similar question, but was there a person you weren't leaned on within the sportscasting world for advice when you started in that role? And what's the best part of your job covering the Royals and baseball as a whole?
Well, it's covering the Royals is it's a privilege. There aren't many people who have the opportunity to cover a Major League Baseball team, and the fact that I've been able to do it for the last 14 years, I feel very fortunate. One person that really stands out from early on when I first started was Paul Splittorff, who I didn't realize it at the time, but when I was asked to be part of the broadcast team, it was a result of Paul Splittorff having some failing health issues that eventually led to his passing. He had battled cancer. So Paul was very, I think, knowledgeable and aware of the fact that he wasn't going to be around forever. And when I came over and started being part of the broadcast team, he really was helpful to me. I think he kind of recognized the fact that I potentially was going to be the heir apparent to what he was doing. And, I always will be thankful that he gave me the advice he gave me. My partner, Joel Goldberg, he's been there for me from day one. I've done almost every broadcast that I've done over the last 14 years alongside Joel. And as a player who has no formal training in broadcast journalism, you essentially are thrown into the fire, and you're not very polished. You're not very prepared, so to speak, as far as a lot of the terminology in the industry and a lot of the way things go and the equipment and all the stuff that you have to learn kind of on the fly. So having someone like Joel who, well, he was a student, and that, he studied broadcast journalism. He understood, and he had an education that really helped prepare him. But he was able to help me along the way, especially early on during the broadcast and even before and after broadcast. Preparing for them, and then afterwards maybe criticizing and critiquing and helping find ways to improve and get better.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, Joel does a great job with that. I still read his book as well. Like, he's a good writer too with his small ball, big results. Uh, yeah, and also we know there have been many rules in baseball, so if I would ask you a question.
Yeah, so for that, what are your thoughts on the new rules and on the pitch clock?
Well, I think they've been good for baseball. I think baseball really has transitioned a lot over the last couple of decades to where it became a game that was more traditional with regards to using athleticism and stealing bases and hitting and running and bunting and manufacturing runs. And it just really kind of got to a point where it was, those three outcomes. They were home runs, they were walks, and they were strikeouts. And those were what really took up the majority of the game. And I think it got a little stale. I think it got, and one big reason for that was the shifts that teams started utilizing with all the metrics available as far as positioning players. So I think players decide, hey, if I can't hit it, if I can't hit a line drive, to right field and get rewarded with a hit, I'm just going to try to start hitting the ball over everybody's head for home runs. And it really changed the game. And I think it was a change, negative change. I think it really took away from the traditional experience of watching a baseball game. Plus, the games, suddenly instead of 2.5 hour games, now suddenly they're mostly 3.5 hour games. And I don't think that's good for the game. I don't think it's good for a sport, especially for younger audiences that usually don't have 3.5 hours to sit down and watch an entire game. I think the pace of the play as a result of the pitch clock has really made the game a lot more exciting to watch, a lot more fun. I think taking the shifts away has certainly helped with regards to making it a more traditional game. Obviously, the larger bases have increased the amount of stolen base attempts and created more of that traditional game. And the game times are like 2.5 hours long now. So now this season, the Royals have one of the worst records in all of baseball, over 40 games under 500. And I've worked almost every game of the season, but I can tell you that it has not been a bad season as far as being part of every one of those games and broadcasts, because the pace of play of the game, it makes it more palatable and easier to sit there and watch a baseball game, win, lose, or draw. That the game's going to be filled with action. There's not going to be a lot of downtime where you're just sitting there waiting for the next pitch to be thrown.
Yes, thank you. So who do you think has the best ABT, best shot of making the playoffs in each conference, and who are some sleeper teams that you could see surprising us?
I think the Braves probably have the best chance of winning the World Series. Just when we saw them early in the season, they were a team that was certainly one that was going to be a team to be reckoned with. Tampa Bay started out playing great in the American League. They've kind of fallen off. They lost, one of their best pitchers, and potentially going to lose their all-star shortstop. They seem to be going a little bit in the wrong direction. The team I think I'd keep my eye out for would be the Houston Astros. Are kind of right on the edge of coming back and taking over the division from the Rangers. The Rangers have been struggling here over the last week or so, I think the Rangers certainly see the Astros in the rearview mirror. And the Astros, with their history and the changes and trades they made before the trade deadline, I think it's going to put the Astros in a real good position, probably to compete with the Braves for a World Series championship.
Yeah, I mean, for me, as a Diamondbacks fan, I'm just impressed to see, even though the Diamondbacks are like almost 500, just saying none being good nowadays is a little bit refreshing for us.
Yeah, I mean, the way they started the season was very impressive, and then they went on that stage where they didn't play so well, but they're playing good baseball again, kind of putting themselves back into, the picture with regards to the wild card hunt.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, that Corbin Carroll guy is really exciting. As me, I'm a Royals fan, so I remember I went to some of the World Series games back in 2015, and like I know a lot of fans are like talking about how they want those things back, but I feel like it takes time for teams to get good. It doesn't start as quick as people think it should. Like it takes a while. Of course, the payrolls are different in each market, so.
And people don't think that people are like, oh, it's gonna be a 1 year rebuild. Rebuilds take years.
Yeah, unfortunately, our rebuild's taken a lot longer than I think a lot of people had hoped. But you have one player. I mean, you mentioned Corbin Carroll. You have one player can be a huge difference maker. Bobby Witt Jr. potentially could be that guy for the Royals. I mean, if you look at teams across baseball that really turn things around. Uh, the Baltimore Orioles. It's a team that turned things around in a real quick fashion. And if you look back to the players they've drafted, they've been instrumental in making that happen.
All right, well, before we let you go, we always like to ask professionals like yourself, if you have any advice for young adults like ourselves who are working toward a career in just sports or sports broadcasting, just any motivational advice you might have for people even wanting to pursue a professional baseball career or in the process of playing in college or anything like that.
Well, I think I learned a lesson very early in my career, and I think it was very helpful in me accomplishing my ultimate goal of playing Major League Baseball. And I think it really pertains to about any career or any passion that one may have. So my first season in professional baseball, I had a manager. His name was Mark Lombard, and we called him Bombi. And at the end of my first season, my rookie season, I played for the Billings Mustangs. And he calls me in his office and basically gives me a little evaluation of what he saw for me during the course of my first season. And he said, one thing I think is very important. He goes, you're not a real big guy. You don't throw real hard. But he goes, I see some things with you that give you maybe an opportunity to advance career-wise to the top. And he said, I want you to promise yourself every day you're going to do one thing better or do one thing to make yourself a better baseball player. So what I started doing was every day I'd find one thing that I could do to make myself a better baseball player. And if you're going to be a broadcaster, do one thing every day to make yourself a better broadcaster. If you're going to be a computer scientist, do one thing every day to help you be a better computer scientist. If you're going to be a teacher, do one thing every day to make yourself a better teacher. What happens is if you start doing this at a very young or early stage in your life and your career, there's one thing that you do every day over a long period of time add up to be a lot of really big things. And that advice helped me probably as much as anything. And it's not just the advice, but it's adhering to it and being disciplined in order to go out and do exactly what you promise yourself. I mean, you have to look at yourself in the mirror a lot of times and ask yourself, was I as good as I could have been today? What did I do, or what didn't I do that could make me better and learn from those mistakes? So I think just being able to look at yourself and identify those weaknesses, identify the strengths and play, whatever you have as far as your best attributes and strengths, play those to the best of your abilities. Just like an athlete who has tremendous running speed, use that speed to help yourself be a better ball player and help your team win games. If you have, the gift of gab and you're a journalist, use that gift to make yourself a better journalist. Just all those little things to me are very important. Now there are some, whether it be athletes or other careers and professions where people are just so enormously gifted. They don't have to work quite as hard, but I can promise you, most athletes that play at a very high level, they are both gifted and they work hard to accomplish their goals.
All right, well, Mr. Montgomery, thank you so much for spending a part of your afternoon with us discussing your career, your memories of baseball and broadcasting, your thoughts on Major League Baseball. It's been great, and I wish you the best with the rest of this amazing MLB season.
Thanks, guys, and I want to wish you the best of luck and thank you for having me be part of your afternoon.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good one.